Jerusalem lay in ruins, its once mighty walls shattered, the temple reduced to ashes. The silence was suffocating, a city's heartbeat stilled, its people scattered or enslaved. Survivors wandered through rubble, haunted by memories and loss. The promise that God would always dwell among them seemed broken. With the temple gone and their king in chains, doubt crept in. Had God abandoned them? The devastation was not just physical, but spiritual, a crisis of faith and identity. Those left behind watched as loved ones were marched away to Babylon, their future uncertain. Both exiles and survivors felt utterly alone, cut off from hope. The night was deep and dark, and no one knew if dawn would ever come. In Babylon, the exiles struggled to find meaning in their suffering. Surrounded by foreign gods and customs, they wondered if God had forgotten them. The old stories of deliverance felt distant, their faith tested by relentless grief. Children asked, "If God is so powerful, why are we here?" The elders had no answers. Prayers seemed to go unheard, and despair settled in. Some considered abandoning their faith for the comfort of Babylon's ways. In their darkest moments, they wrestled with the question, where is God when it hurts? Like us, they longed for a sign that their story wasn't over. They needed hope, a reason to believe God still cared. In Judah's ruins, Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, mourned with his people. He had warned them, but now he shared their pain, praying with tears and raw honesty. Jeremiah didn't seek easy answers. He sought God himself in the silence. Amid the devastation, he heard a whisper, a gentle assurance from God. God didn't explain the suffering but promised it wasn't the end. The destruction was discipline, not abandonment. God's love remained, even if it was a refining love. Jeremiah's sorrow turned to purpose. He was called to bring hope. God's message was radical: trust him in exile. Jeremiah, once a prophet of doom, became a messenger of hope. He prepared to write a letter that would change everything. In a time of deep uncertainty and sorrow, Jeremiah became the voice of hope for a people far from home. He carefully penned God's words onto a scroll, sending a message that would travel across deserts and rivers, a lifeline to the exiles in Babylon, connecting them to the heart of their faith and the God who had not forgotten them. The letter didn't offer the comfort of a quick rescue or an immediate return to Jerusalem. Instead, it called the exiles to settle in, to build houses with their own hands, to plant gardens and watch them grow, to invest in the land where they now lived, even though it was foreign and unfamiliar. Jeremiah urged them to live fully in Babylon, to create new rhythms of life, to share meals, to celebrate small joys, and to nurture families even as they longed for home. God's message was clear: don't put your lives on hold, don't wait for better days to begin living. Instead, bloom where you're planted, and let your roots go deep, even in unfamiliar soil. God's presence wasn't confined to the ruined streets of Jerusalem or the temple's sacred walls. He was with them in exile, walking beside them in their sorrow, and meeting them in their everyday moments. At the very heart of Jeremiah's letter was a promise that would echo through generations. "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord. These were not empty words. God's plans were to give them hope in a future, to bring purpose out of their pain. Their suffering was not meaningless. It was a season of shaping, not of destruction. The exile would last 70 years, a lifetime for some, a long wait for all. But it would not last forever. There was an end date, a boundary set by God himself. This timeline put a limit on their pain, reminding them that every season, even the hardest, has its appointed end. The promise was not just for those who first heard it, but for their children and grandchildren. It gave hope for the next generation, a reason to keep building, loving, and dreaming. Through every storm and every trial, God was still in control, holding the key to their future and guiding their story. He was writing a story of restoration, one that would one day see the ruins rebuilt and hope restored. The letter declared with quiet confidence, "Your story isn't over." Even in exile, God's plan was unfolding step by step, day by day. Even in a foreign land surrounded by unfamiliar faces and customs, they were not abandoned. They were called to adapt, to learn, and to trust. The exiles were called to trust God's heart, to live with courage and to hope with expectation, knowing that their faith would sustain them. They were invited to embrace life, to find joy in community, and to nurture hope, even in the midst of hardship. God's promise was their anchor, a steady hope in uncertain times, a reminder that no matter where they were never alone. When Jeremiah's letter arrived from Jerusalem, it stirred a whirlwind of emotions among the exiles. Some people read his words with deep skepticism, their faces shadowed by disappointment and disbelief. Others, however, found a glimmer of hope in his message, daring to believe that God had not forgotten them, even in this foreign land. Many clung desperately to the comforting but false promises that their exile would be short, that they would soon return home. Yet, a courageous few chose to listen to Jeremiah's call, to settle down, to build lives, and to trust in God's plan, even when it was hard to understand. These faithful exiles rolled up their sleeves and began to build real homes from the earth of Babylon. They planted gardens, coaxing life from unfamiliar soil, and in doing so, they experienced God's provision in surprising ways. The taste of fresh vegetables grown by their own hands became a symbol of hope and resilience. Over time, families grew and laughter returned to their gatherings. Children played in the courtyards and the community shared joyful meals under the open sky. Their faith, once tied to a distant temple, became deeply personal and remarkably resilient. Without the temple, worship found a new home right in their own living rooms. Here in these humble spaces, the seeds of the synagogue were planted, and faith was passed from one generation to the next. God's presence was no longer confined to a single building. Instead, it was discovered in the warmth of community, in shared prayers, and in the simple act of gathering together. Remarkably, they began to pray for Babylon itself, seeking peace and prosperity for the very city that had once been their place of captivity. Their prayers reached beyond their own needs, embracing the welfare of their new neighbors. This shift transformed them. No longer bitter captives, they became agents of blessing, sharing food, kindness, and wisdom with those around them, building bridges where there had once been walls. By serving their captors and working alongside them, the exiles discovered a renewed sense of purpose. Their daily labor became an act of faith, a way to honor God even in unfamiliar circumstances. In the heart of the empire, they became a light in the darkness. Every seed they planted, every act of kindness, was a quiet rebellion, an act of hope that pointed to a better future. Against all odds, their faith not only survived but flourished. Even in exile, they built a thriving community, rooted in hope, resilience, and the unshakable belief that God was with them wherever they went. We all know exile, seasons of loss, illness, or broken dreams. Like the Israelites, we wonder if God has a plan for our pain. Jeremiah's letter speaks to us: build, plant, and live fully, even in hard places. Don't wait for life to start someday. Find purpose now. Invest in relationships, sow kindness, seek the good of your community. God is with you, even here. His promise remains: I have plans to give you hope and a future. Your struggle isn't the end of your story. God is working behind the scenes, shaping you for what's next. Trust Him. Your exile has a boundary and hope is on the horizon. Jeremiah's letter is a testament to stubborn hope, anchored not in circumstances but in God's character. In a world that often feels uncertain and unpredictable, Jeremiah's words echo across centuries, reminding us that hope is not a fleeting feeling, but a steady anchor. His message was written to people who had lost everything familiar, yet he urged them to look beyond their present pain and trust in the unchanging nature of God. For the exiles, hope meant trusting God's promise in the midst of pain. They were far from home, surrounded by reminders of loss, yet Jeremiah called them to believe that God's plans were still unfolding, even in exile. Their hope was not wishful thinking, but a courageous act of faith in the face of despair. True hope anchors us in life's storms, teaching us patience and deepening our faith. When the winds of adversity blow and the waves threaten to overwhelm, hope keeps us steady. It reminds us that storms are not the end of the story, but a chapter in a greater narrative. Waiting isn't passive, it's active trust in God's perfect timing. To wait with hope is to prepare, to pray, and to believe that God is working behind the scenes, even when we cannot see it. It's a daily choice to trust that the dawn will break, no matter how long the night. If you feel lost or forgotten, remember Jeremiah's message: build, create, and invest in the life you have, right where you are. Even in desolate places, hope can take root and grow. Plant seeds of faith, nurture dreams, and hold on to hope. Every small act of trust is a step toward restoration, a sign that you believe in a future shaped by God's goodness. God's promises are true, even when the way is dark. When you can't see the next step, let His word be your light. In the deepest night, hope shines brightest. Your story isn't over, God is still writing it. Each day is a new page, filled with possibility and purpose. Trust that the author of your life is weaving something beautiful, even from brokenness. The God who restored Israel can restore you. No ruin is too great, no heart too shattered for his healing touch. He specializes in rebuilding what seems lost forever. Let this story remind you, no situation is beyond God's redemption. Chains can break, darkness can lift, and new beginnings can dawn even after the longest night. Cling to hope, trust his timing, and keep your eyes on the horizon. The journey may be long, but every step forward is a testament to faith. A new day is coming. God's plans for you are good, and his hope never fails. Let your heart be lifted by the promise of his unfailing love, and walk boldly into the light of a future filled with hope.